Joyce had put so much of her identity initially into being wife, mother, influencer, creating this lifestyle, all of those things. It was hard for her to let that go. Hey there, I'm Kathleen, and in this video, we are going to talk about The Polygamist. We're really going to focus on Joyce's story and why it's an example of what it looks like to go through an identity shift. So if you haven't watched The Polygamist on Netflix yet, save this video to your watch later list and come back because there's no way to talk about this without spoiling it. This is based off of a book by the same name. And basically, I heard about it on Threads. People were talking about it. I don't think I was planning on watching it because I thought it was a documentary and I don't really feel like watching documentaries right now. But when I heard, like it's unscripted or it's scripted, and I heard so many people talking about it, and people were talking about it and there were no spoilers. So I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and watch this. Watched it in like what, a day and a half, and I was hooked. And I watched it in Zulu with the English subtitles. And I feel like that really adds to the overall experience. You could really feel the emotion. And there's just so much that happens across these 22 episodes. But like I said, we're really going to focus on Joyce because on my channel and most of the work that I do on Substack, I talk and write about identity shifts, transitions, rebuilding after loss or disruption or life transitions. And so watching The Polygamist, I really connected with Joyce, not because I'm unmarried, child-free, never been married, not because of being, one of however many wives, not that part. But the part that I think is universal is the identity shift that Joyce goes through. And really, like the stages of grief that she goes through throughout the series, because I kept asking, Joyce, why do you keep staying with this man? Joyce specifically, like all the women, honestly. I'm like, what is it about Jonas? But I really kept asking Joyce, talking back to the screen, like, Joyce, why do you keep staying with this man? All right, so let's start from the beginning. So when we first meet, or when the series starts with Joyce and the kids walking into the funeral for Jonas. So we know Jonas has died, and she's speaking over his body. She curses him out, and so immediately you're like, okay, what led to Jonas dying? What led to his death? And why is his wife cursing him out? So it takes us back 5 years where the story starts, or it's just, the story from the past 5 years. And Joyce is an influencer, and Jonas is the CEO of their company, which is like a real estate holding company, something like that. It's a JSE traded company. So they have a lot of money. And Joyce is an influencer. She's in this partnership with the brand Ivory Oasis Baths. And she's in a meeting with the account team. And they're basically saying, like, hey, we've enjoyed our partnership, but you have not delivered your contract, the terms of the contract, which says 2 posts a month. One of those posts should include your husband. Because it looks like Joyce has created a brand around her family, being a wife, being a mother, being rich, and all of that. And so with this partnership, she's supposed to be including her husband in 1 post a month. And so the brand is like, you haven't been doing that. It shouldn't be that hard. It's 1 post a month. Well, what they don't know is that Joyce and Jonas, they are separated. Jonas is living with his side chick, Matipa. And so Joyce is telling the brand, she's like, oh no, like my husband's just been really busy. And the brand is like, are you sure? Because we've been hearing some rumors. And Joyce is like, no, everything's great. In fact, we're having a 20th wedding anniversary party this weekend. You all should come and you'll see. And so she goes to the house where Jonas and Matipa live, which is like one of Joyce and Jonas's like old houses where they used to live. And so we find out that they've been separated for a year. And it's because Matipa and Jonas started an affair when Matipa, who works at J&J, she was up for a promotion. And essentially, she seduced Jonas while she was dating Magesh, who is Jonas's brother, who we believe to be married to Essie, and that Sarah is his daughter. Okay, you tracking with me so far? Because that's already a lot. And this is just in like the first 2 episodes. So Matipa and Jonas start this affair. Joyce finds out about it. And mind you, they start this affair like the day that Joyce gives birth to their youngest child, who we only see like twice in the whole series. So they start this affair, and Joyce finds out about it. She confronts Matipa at the spa. They get into a physical fight, and Jonas gets home and he's all like, "Oh, like, why are you acting like this? You're out of control, blah, blah, blah." Now, Joyce is like, "You're either going to break up with your side chick or you're going to leave." She did not expect Jonas to leave. I think she thought that he was going to break up with Matipa. But Jonas is very much like, "You're not going to tell me what to do. Like, I built this." So Jonas leaves. And at this point, Joyce, she didn't expect that. Now, for me, at this point, I'm like, okay, why didn't she leave when she first found out about Matipa? And what we learn about Joyce is that she's created this image, this perception, and she cares a lot about that image. And in the beginning, she talks a lot about how she doesn't want to lose everything that she's built. And I don't think she's just talking about her marriage because she and Jonas they met in university and college, and they've been together 20 years or been married coming up to 20 years. She's not just talking about that, she's talking about the life that they built. Now keep in mind that Joyce, she came from like wealth. Her family was wealthy. Her father was the one who invested in their company J&J to get it going. And like she built the company with Jonas, but now Jonas is at this point where he's like, "No, I built everything. We don't have everything we have because of you being a content creator. It's because of my work." So he's like dismissing Joyce and her contributions to the empire that they have now. So Joyce doesn't want to lose all of everything that she's given, like 20 years plus what they built. She doesn't want to lose that. So she's holding on to that. And that's why, when she first finds out about Matipa, she doesn't leave and she tells Jonas like he either has to break up with her or he has to leave. So he leaves. And so they're separated for a year. And then, like I said, when she met with the brand and they're like, "Where's your husband?" So she invites them to the party. So she goes to the house and she gives him the invitation to the party. And Matipa's there too. And then Matipa goes inside, and Joyce and Jonas are talking, and she's listening. And they're arguing because Jonas is like, "I'm not coming to this party." And so then Matipa, she basically gives Jonas an ultimatum without making it seem like it's an ultimatum, or she tries to play it off like, "Oh, I just want you all to myself. I just want to love you, but I'm just tired of this back and forth with Joyce. Like, how long is this going to go on?" So then Jonas files for divorce. When Joyce gets the divorce papers, well, one, she's in shock, and her mom was like, "Well, he moved out a year ago, so why are you in shock?" But again, that shock is because like this is part of like the stages of grief. Like it could be a little bit of denial, or it's just like she's not willing to accept that she's about to lose everything that she's built. She's like, she's not having this. She's like, absolutely not. She confronts him at the office, and she's not willing to accept defeat, basically, at this point. And Jonas is all like, "Well, you don't have a choice, but I'll still take care of you, whatever, whatever." So then later on that night, because the first episode is like a week, like in time. It's only a few days. So he serves her the papers the day before their anniversary party. And then later on that night, she gets a call from someone who's like, "Oh, is the party canceled? Because I see that Jonas is traveling." And so Joyce is like, "What are you talking about?" So she goes to Jonas and the house where Jonas and Matip are living, and she like walks in, which it doesn't seem like people lock their doors in this part of South Africa, but because people just keep walking into people's homes just without a key. Well, actually, no, she does. Okay, no, she didn't just walk. She does have a key to the house because it's still her house too. And she told Matipa that, okay, yeah, no, ignore that. She does have a key to the house. She just walk in. Okay. So she lets herself into the house and she sees that they have their bags packed and they have their passport and travel documents on the table. And so she's like, "Oh, so he really is trying to leave and not come to this party, and I'm going to lose everything." Because it seems like in order for her to renew her partnership with the brand, it's really based on her delivering posts with Jonas. And so she's invited them to the party. If he doesn't show up, now she looks silly and she's going to lose this partnership. And so while she's in the house and she looks up on the wall and there's this picture of Jonas and Matipa, and like Matipa's wearing a white dress and Jonas is like behind her. And we flash back to a scene where it seemed like it was early, well, it was early in Jonas and Joyce's marriage. The kids were young, and they have a similar picture on the wall of the same house with Joyce wearing white and Jonas behind her. and they're all happy. And so when Joyce saw that picture of Matipa and Jonas on the wall, it like triggered something in her. Trigger might not be the right word, but I think in that moment, she realized she's about to lose everything. So I think she kind of, I don't want to say snapped, but she maybe got desperate because she is about to lose it all. So she sets their passport and travel documents on fire. And then she picks up, she like set it on fire on a plate or a dish on the table. She picks it up and then like drops it. I do think it was an accident. I don't think she intended to set the house on fire, but she dropped it. The curtains catch on fire. The house is on fire. Matipa and Jonas are upstairs. They're occupied. They are occupied. So they don't know all this is going on. Joyce leaves. She's panicked because she didn't mean to set the house on fire. So she panics and then she gets arrested. And then later on, like the kids, because they come home when they see her getting arrested, the kids go to where Jonas and Matipa are. Now they're in a rental. The kids are like, "You're just chilling in this rental. You don't care about our mother. You don't care about us." And this is the day of the party. So Jonas, he bails Joyce out of jail, takes her home. At this point, Joyce is like, "You know what? I'm tired of arguing. I will sign the divorce papers, but only after you come to the party." And Jonas is like, "Nah, I'm not doing that." And she's like, "This is what you gotta do if you want your freedom." He's like, "Nah, I don't want it that way. I'm not coming." So again, Joyce is still desperate. And so she's desperate, yet also she uses her connections. So she calls the minister. Oh, no, she calls the minister's wife because the minister is offering, or they're offering a tender to J&J, and she calls the minister's wife and asks for a favor. Basically, they're gonna uh the condition of the tender is that it's Joyce and Jonasi as a package. They're not gonna just give the tender to Jonas if Joyce isn't involved. So this now threatens the tender. So that's what gets Jonas to actually come to the anniversary party. Now, Joyce did invite Matipa to the party, and she shows up in a red dress. And she showed up because she wanted to watch Joyce be humiliated because Matipa's thinking that Jonas isn't going to show up. So that's why Matipa came. Well, Jonas does show up. And for some reason, when they get home, like they go back to the main Gamora house, Joyce signs the papers. And then as soon as she signs the paper, she starts to walk off. Now Jonas is like, "I miss you." So I don't know what it is. Like, what was it about the part? Was it like the memory? I don't know. But now, like Jonas, he wants to act like nothing ever happened. He's like, "Oh, everything's in the past." And Joyce, in that moment, like when he's like, "I miss you," and then he starts kissing her, she's very confused. She's like, "Wait a minute. Like, you served me papers. You've been gone for a year. We just had this party that I had to, like manipulate you to come. I just signed the papers and now you're talking about you miss me." Okay, but like she never wanted to separate from Jonas. So she's like, "Okay, cool. Like we're still together." And so at this point I was just like, what is happening? Like what are we doing? So now the next couple of episodes, you know, Jonas, he's like getting back in Joyce's good graces, and the kids, like things start to seem okay. But the show was called The Polygamist, and at this point, we haven't been introduced to any other wives. But it's called The Polygamist, so there's it's not going to stay this well and good for a long time. So we fast forward a couple of episodes, and oh wait, before I fast forward, so in everything being all well and good between Joyce and Jonasi, they fire Matipa from J&J because she worked at J&J. When she like got the promotion, she was the head of legal and compliance. So she gets fired, and then she's like, "Well, I'm gonna sue." She does like file for a settlement or a claim. I don't know what the word is, but she doesn't receive it. So then she starts talking to the minister. She starts working for the minister's company or for the minister, and she starts talking to the minister, which then Jonas sees them out when he's out with Joyce when she went to the bathroom. He sees them and then like he becomes jealous. Now fast forward a couple of episodes and we find out that Matipa has had twins. She's given birth to twins. And Jonas, he's in the hospital room. And Joyce finds out because she was at the hospital because she was going to tie her tubes, but then she just couldn't go through with it without her husband knowing. Where was Jonas when she was secretly going to tie her tubes? Well, he told her that he was going on a business trip to America, to the US. There was no business trip. He was, you know, planning to be with Matipa when she gave birth and for the few days afterwards. So that's how Joyce finds out that Matipa just had two twins, two girls, Haley and Ashley. Okay, so now at this point, like this really like pushes Joyce over the edge because when when she and Jonas like they did have a conversation before they fired Matipa because she's like, I'm not gonna be put in that position again. You're not about to make me look like a fool. Like we're not doing this. And so now Matipa has had twins and Jonas. Now, okay, I know we throw around the word narcissist a lot, but Jonas, he is a narcissist, right? Narcissist or sociopath, that's one of those. Because like Joyce is distraught finding out about these twins, and then Jonas, he's all like, "Oh well, I'm an idiot. You know how I grew up, and Magesh, he only uses me for money, and like, oh, I'm just all these. Isn't that narcissism?" But anyway, so at this point, this is where I'm like, okay, Joyce, you're probably gonna leave him, right? Well, no, she doesn't leave him because she even tells her friend like she still loves him even after all of this, even with the twins and all of this and the lies. The lies is where I would have been like, absolutely not. But what she does do, she tries to kill him. So she goes and she contacts one of her father's, because her father has passed away. She gets one of her father's like previous contacts and she buys a gun from him. She plans to kill this man. They originally had like an interview with the brand scheduled. She had the interview canceled. She asked her mom to take the kids out of the house for the night. she Jonas had left the house to go like be with Matipa for a couple of hours. And like in this scene where he leaves and she's like literally begging him and like holding his leg, trying to stop him from leaving. I was just kind of like, girl, what are we doing? This is where I was very confused. I'm like, why are we holding on? But again, it just all goes back to Joyce not wanting to lose everything that she's built. She's like scared. She's either scared of what happens next or she doesn't know what to do. Like, how does she like, what does that mean for her? All of that. So she buys this gun. She calls Jonas to come back home. Now, mind you, oh, wait, no, that's the next scene. Okay. She calls Jonas to come back home. He comes home and the house is empty. She's in their bedroom. She got the gun loaded. She's ready. But when he walks in, she like stumbles, drops the gun. They both look at it. They both run to it. And Jonas, he's like, "Are you trying to kill yourself?" And I'm like, "No, she's trying to kill you." But anyway, so she tries to kill Jonas. Does not. Jonas thinks that she was trying to kill herself. And he's like, we got to focus on your well-being. That's what it's about. And then the next day, he's in the office with Magesh. And he tells Magesh to get rid of the gun. Magesh is like, what happened? He's like, oh, Joyce tried to kill herself. And then Magesh, he's like, you underestimate Joyce's loyalty to you. Because Magesh is the voice of reason. Minus, oh, we're not going to get to that part yet, but we're going to circle back. So Magesh is like, you underestimate Joyce's loyalty and commitment to you. And Jonas, he's like, okay, yeah, I mean, I've hurt Joyce, sure, but I still love her. And, it's till death do us part. But this, I think, is the first time that Jonas says it's till death do us part, because he says that several times. And keep in mind, like the first scene, we know that Jonas died. So it's like, okay, so clearly it's going to take you dying for y'all to be apart. And at this point, I understand why Joyce cursed him out at the funeral, even though this isn't even the worst part. Him having secret, you know, getting Matisse pregnant and having secret twins and lying about, that's not even the worst part. So Joyce, she's telling her friend that she still loves him even after all this. So Joyce goes over to Matipa's house. So now Matipa has a new house that Jonas is paying for. Joyce goes over to Matipa's house and she's like, Matipa, what is it going to take for you to leave my husband alone? So at this point, because again, this is all like Joyce's identity shift. At this point, this is like the stage of grief where you start bargaining, where it's like, okay, well, I still love him, even though he keeps lying and he has secret babies, which Joyce, like, she likes kids and she doesn't initially because there is a point where like I'm not gonna say she was disrespectful to the kids, but she kind of at the christening she was kind of like, you know, forget these kids. But then she was like, it's not about the kids, or like her anger is not towards the kids, it's towards Jonas. But anyway, so because Joyce even said to Jonas, like, well, if you're sure that these are your kids, then the kids can stay and live with us. So we're gonna come back to that. But she goes to Matipa's house and is like, what is it gonna take for you to leave my husband alone? And she offers her, she's like, you know, you're young and you're beautiful and you're smart, which Matipa is. She's like, you can have any man that you want. You know, I'll give you money and you can move to Cape Town or wherever you want to move. I'll use my connections and I'll make sure that you have a job. I'll make sure that Jonas provides for the kids, all of that. She's like, what is it going to take for you to leave? And Matipa, she's like, well, I love him with my whole heart. I didn't plan to fall for a married man, but that's what happened. It is what it is. I'm not going anywhere. So at this point, Joyce is like, this is why I say it's bargaining. At this point, Joyce is like, well, I guess if Matipa's not going anywhere and I'm not going anywhere and Jonas isn't going anywhere, we may as well make this official. And so this is where we are introduced to polygamy because she essentially says to Jonas, we're going to accept Matipa as a second wife. And Magesh is like, are you sure about this? Because polygamy isn't a game, like this is serious. And Joyce says this is for self-preservation. So basically, Joyce is doing what she thinks she needs to do to survive. And so in this moment, to survive her marriage to Jonas, that neither one of them wants to leave, her only option is to accept Matipa as a second wife and to stop fighting, you know, the fact that Matipa's in the picture. Okay, so Jonas is still alive. Joyce is not leaving Jonas. And this is why. Okay. So then Matipa becomes the second wife, and or so we think she's the second wife. So fast forward, I'm trying to stay in order. So it's after, I'm trying to remember when did we find, okay, well, long story short, remember how we thought Magesh was married to Essie and they have a child together, Sarah? Turns out Essie is actually Jonasi's second wife, which makes Matipa wife number three. So we find out that Essie, who she is essentially like Jonas's first love, like teenage sweetheart. They all grew up in Soweto, which is the township. Magesh, Jonas. Magesh is older than Jonas, and then Essie. They all grew up in the township. Essie is who paid for Jonas to go to school. She does hair. She was saving money for her own salon. She gives Jonas the money to go to school, where he then meets Joyce. So when he goes away to school, Essie's like, focus on school, which, you know, like call me, but focus on school. So at first, Jonas does call her, but eventually he stops calling her. And she finds out years later in the newspaper that he has married Joyce. Now, when Jonas and Essie, like when they were together, he promised her like a red BMW and a two-story house. So then she sees the announcement in the newspaper that he married Joyce, and then he pops up randomly with the red BMW. And so it's like when he popped up with the red BMW and some flowers, she forgot about, you know, the fact that she hadn't heard from him. Well, she didn't forget, but it's like, oh, okay, well, you brought me the red BMW, so cool. So then Jonas is like, I want you to be my second wife. And Essie, she's like, is Joyce going to be okay with that? And he's like, oh, I'll talk to Joyce. Don't worry about it. She'll be fine with it. So then they have a wedding and Essie becomes the second wife. Now, fast forward, Essie's now pregnant. Jonasi and Essie, they're at Bye Bye Baby or Babies R Us. They're shopping for the baby. They run into Joyce, who is also pregnant. She's pregnant with Mpume because Mpume and Sarah are the same age. At first, I thought she was pregnant with Menzi, who's oldest, but she's pregnant with Mpume. Essie's pregnant with Sarah. So they run into Joyce, and Joyce is like, oh, Jonasi, who's this woman? And he's like, oh, this is Magesh's wife. Now, a lot of people were like, well, why did Essie go along with it? Because Essie is the biggest enabler in this show. Like, she is. But Essie, keep in mind, and I'm not defending this. Essie thought that Jonas told Joyce that he was taking a second wife. So she's shocked to find out, like, wait, not only are you like denying that I'm your wife, but you lied and you told me that Joyce was okay with this or that she knew about it. No. So eventually, Jonas stops coming to visit the kids. Sarah, not the kids. He stops coming to visit Sarah and Essie, but he sends Magesh to like provide financially to give an allowance every so often. So that's how we find out that that's how we, the audience, find out that Essie is actually Jonas's second wife. Joyce doesn't find out until after the christening of the twins, which the party happens at Joyce and Jonasi's house because the venue double booked, and Jonas didn't tell Joyce that he told Matipa that the party was going to be at the house. So after that party, that's how Joyce finds out because Essie fell down the stairs when she was arguing with Sarah because Sarah was cheating with Mpume with Mpume's boyfriend, and she did it maliciously. Like all of that is it's not irrelevant to the story, but like that's at this episode, I was like, this is a lot. This is a lot. So Essie, when Essie fell down the stairs, and Sarah, so the thing is with Sarah and Essie, they become the secret family. So like Sarah is aware that Jonas is her father, which sometimes I'm like, I wonder if they could have just I don't know if this is better. What if they had like just made it seem like Magesh was Sarah's father the whole time because Sarah, she is dealing with a lot with knowing that Jonas is her father, but being neglected and being the outsider watching, watching Joyce and their family. And what really like seems to put her over the edge is what is it about Matipa and the twins that he accepts Matipa and the twins and claims them publicly, but Essie and Sarah, he does not. And Essie tells us it's because it's like she seems to remind him of where he came from, where he doesn't want to go back to in the township. And Essie thinks that he looks down on them because she chose to stay in Soweto instead of moving somewhere else. So Jonas seems to be like embarrassed of Essie and Sarah. So he just pretends that they don't exist unless it's convenient for him. But anyway, so that's why Sarah, like, it was a cry for help. So that's why she cheated with Mpume's boyfriend. So then they get into a fight, falls down the stairs. Joyce comes to the hospital because Sarah can't get in touch with Magesh or Jonas. And then Sarah tells the truth. So that's how Joyce finds out that Essie is actually Jonas's second wife. And now at this point, this is now where I think it's a turning point for Joyce because it's one thing for I think for Joyce, it was one thing for her husband to cheat and have an affair and have a side chick who then like got pregnant. I think on one hand, she could kind of understand that because it happens. But the fact that, and when I say it happens, I know I said that just like flippant, like it happens. That doesn't mean that that's like it shouldn't be normalized. But I think for Joyce, maybe it's just one of those things where she can understand. Whereas with Essie, y'all been lying for 20 plus years or 20 years. You've been lying. She's come to you as a sister. She's come to you for advice about Jonas and for what to do. Whole time you're the second wife. And same with like Magesh, like you called me your sister-in-law and you two have been lying. Like everyone has been lying. So I think at this point, this is a turning point for Joyce where she's no longer in denial. She's not trying to bargain anymore. And I think because again, she is an influencer, so she has a platform. With the platform comes responsibility. And up until this point, I'm not gonna say that Joyce was only thinking about herself, but she was really thinking about what she had to lose. At this point, finding out about Essie, she realized the responsibility that she had and that she's living a lie. And by living this lie and having this brand that's built on a lie, she can't keep doing this. I mean, granted, she was living a lie before with the anniversary parties, considering that Jonas had moved out, they were separated, but that's different. This is like her whole life has, not her whole life, but her whole marriage to Jonas has been a lie. And so this seems to be the turning point. Even her mom was like, this is enough. This marriage is going to kill you, like, enough. And so there was a scene where a woman comes up to Joyce at the park and she's like, "Oh, my husband, he wanted to take another wife and I was against it, but seeing how you're doing it and living it and it doesn't look so bad. I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna accept another wife." And so I think like realizing that and realizing that women look up to her and she's trying to pretend like, it's all rainbows and butterflies in the Gomorrah house with multiple wives and all of that. She's trying to make it seem like she's okay with it when she's really not. And so she decides to like take a break from creating content and like she ends her partnership. She breaches contract or ends her partnership with the brand. And she says she needs to figure out what she needs to do for herself and choose herself for the first time. And I think at this point, she just needs the time to do that. This is probably the first time where like she said, it's the first time she's putting herself first. But this is the first time where she's thinking about what she needs instead of what everybody else needs or trying to make everyone else happy. She she's doing it for herself, finally. But she still doesn't leave Jonas at this point. At this point, she says to Jonas, she's like, are there any other secrets? Are there any other wives coming out the woodwork? And this is also where she and Matipa, now they actually become friendly because they have the common ground of like all of these lies that Jonas has told them and everybody else. Now they're like, okay, we are sisters. We are united together. So at this point, it's I think Mpume is leaving for university pretty soon. And Menzie, he started working at J&J. So Joyce takes them on a holiday. She's like, you guys need a break from your father, so let's go away. And then we find out that Jonas, well, okay, when they come back early from their holiday because Menzie has a panic attack. Why does Menzie have a panic attack? Well, because Joyce and Mpume tell Menzie that Lindani, who is Mpume's best friend, stay with me, that she had a miscarriage. She was in the hospital, she had a miscarriage, and she was discharged. Menzie has a panic attack because Lindani has been his crush from like the beginning of the series when we first meet them. Lindani is his crush. They get back home, and Joyce walks in to her bedroom and master bathroom where there's Lindani in the tub and Jonas is giving her a bath. That's how Joyce finds out that Jonas is the father of the child of the pregnancy. He's the father. Now, at this point, I was trying to do the math. I was like, wait, okay, how old is Mpume? How old is Lindani? Is she underage? Now, even if she weren't underage, even if she were 18, it's still predatory, it's still gross. But it turns out that Lindani is underage, so it's even worse. So, and I think we saw at this point, I can't remember if we had already learned how Jonas essentially preyed and groomed on Lindani because Lindani had been coming to their house since she was like 8. Like this part where I had to take some breaks, like this was gross. I was just like, what is happening? Like, why are we here? So yeah, so essentially Jonas impregnated Lindani. She miscarried and her mother kicked her out. She eventually was living with Jonas. When it came to Lindani, finding out about Lindani, this is what put everybody over the edge. So everyone has their limit. Everyone has a different breaking point. And so that's where we are with this Lindani situation. I think this was the breaking point. This was essentially everyone's limit. So Joyce even says to Jonas that she doesn't have any more love left for him. Like up until this point, there was still some love there. But now she's like, it's gone. There's no more love here. I want a divorce. And Jonas is like, no, we're not getting a divorce. It's till death. Again, this keeps coming up. It's till death do we part. Again, we know that he died. It's just a matter of how did he die at this point. So essentially, I think this is the first time that Jonas actually says to Joyce, where it's till death. Joyce is like, okay, bet. Till death, bet. So for dinner, because he was complaining that she didn't cook. So she cooked the next night, and the kids are like disgusted that she cooked for him. And so she cooked the next night and she put borax on his rice. And he smashed that plate. I mean, the food did look good, but he's like, yeah, it's true what they say. The way to a man's heart is to stomach plus borax, apparently. So, and Pume leaves that night for university. Joyce comes in the house and she goes to to Menzie's room where he's there with the youngest, who I can't remember his name because he's only on like one episode. And so she's like, let's turn on some music, let's dance. So they're dancing. Meanwhile, Jonas is downstairs. He's calling all of his wives and his girlfriend Lindani. Nobody's answering the phone. And he starts like foaming at the mouth. Their housekeeper slash nanny slash cook slash all of the above. She finds him and she is like calling for Joyce, but they've turned the music up. They're dancing. So at the hospital, the doctor, like, Joyce, she's putting on a performance. The doctor is like, oh, it turns out that, he was poisoned. And she's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that why would he do this to himself? Why would he try to kill himself? I know that we've been having some problems, but I didn't know it was this bad. Later on, she basically pays off the doctor to say that he had a heart attack because they were able to pump his stomach, so the borax did not kill him. So she's like, say that he had a heart attack. So sure enough, when he wakes up, he says they tell him that he has a heart attack. So now like he goes home and I think she has him like staying in his office area and Joyce leaves. She goes somewhere else for the day. Because at this point, remember, like she does not love that man, so she does not care. So she leaves, and again, he's calling all of the other wives and Lindani. Now, Matipa, she, again, the whole situation with Lindani and getting an STD, she's done. So she's at the bank trying to transfer a large amount of money into her account because she's trying to get out of there. And so she's ignoring Jonas's calls. I can't remember if I think he was calling Essie. I can't remember if she was ignoring his calls too. I don't know what was happening with Essie. And then Lindani, he couldn't get in touch with her. So nobody's like watching after him or caring for him. And he's like, I just got out of the hospital. I just had a heart attack. So that also seems to like set him over the edge. And so this is where I think Jonas kind of like became possessed. And this is when he becomes physically abusive towards both Joyce and Matipa. And those scenes were like really hard to watch. And Matipa and Joyce the next day, I can't remember where Jonas was at that point, but the next day, Matipa and Joyce are talking because Matipa has come over. She's brought the girls and she notices that Joyce covered up the black eye from Jonas. She covered it up with makeup, but she can see it. She's like, what happened? And so they show each other their bruises. And so like they're both kind of bonding over that. And Matipa's like, can you watch the girls for a little bit? So she watches the girls. Matipa doesn't come back. They find a note in the bag, in the girls' diaper bag or their bag. It's a note to Joyce. Matipa's like, yeah, I gotta go. Can you watch these kids? You're a great mother. So I gotta go take care of me, but I can't do that with the girls. So you got it. I'm sorry for everything. Okay, so Matipa's gone. Matipa's gone. At this point, so I'm gonna fast forward because it's after Jonas physically abuses Joyce, and then we later find out he also sexually assaulted her. That's when she is like, absolutely, absolutely enough. This done. No more. She she first has Magesh. She calls Magesh and she's like, what is it going to take? Does somebody have to be killed in order for somebody to do something? Like, what are you going to do? What type of man are you going to essentially stop this? And so she kicks Jonas out. Um, and then she also, now remember when she accidentally burned down the house and she went to jail? Well, in that scene, she was talking to the other woman who was also arrested. That woman got HIV from her boyfriend. So that woman's HIV positive. So, and when the officer was like, "Oh, Joyce Gomorrah, your husband's here." She's like, "Oh, I recognize you. I thought that was you. I'm gonna DM you, so answer me." So she must have DM'd her, and Joyce hit her up, and she paid her to infect Jonas with HIV. So we find that out later, but this is the sequence of when that happened. So after Jonas was abusive, she's like, absolutely not. She kicks him out. Jonas is all like, oh, you'll regret this. He fires Magesh. Magesh tries to go to work the next day or whatever, the next Monday, and his ID card doesn't work. And Jonas now lives in the house that Matipa left. He now lives there with Lindani. And I'm trying to think of what happened at this point. So yeah, so at this point, at this point, Joyce is like, she's done with it, moving on. Now she's gonna, help raise the girls, the twins. And then this is where Jonas, he starts coughing. And Lindani's like, yo, you've been coughing for a while. Go get that checked out. He's like, oh, it's fine, it's fine. He does go to the doctor. He finds out that he is HIV positive, plus he has pneumonia. It was funny because the doctor was like, oh, you have pneumonia. And then Jonas is like, oh, okay, we can get that treated. And then the doctor's like, oh, by the way, you also tested positive for HIV. And it's like, wait, okay, the pneumonia, like pneumonia can make, absolutely can make the, HIV symptoms worse and it can make it worse. But lead with the HIV positive results, not the pneumonia. Like, which one is more urgent or more pressing? So that's how we find out that he is HIV positive. Like I said, we later found out that he caught it from the woman that Joyce met in jail, who she came to the house that he was living in with Lindani. She came over and was like, "Oh, I'm looking for my friend Matipa. I haven't been able to get in touch with her." And he's like, "Oh, she doesn't live here." And she's like, "Oh, well, can I have some water?" So then he like invites her in for water. Next thing you know, now he has HIV. But anyway, wait, it's not even really about Jonas, it's about Joyce. So at that point, again, Jonas said like it's till death. And Joyce is like, okay, bet. Then he becomes abusive. She kicks him out. And now I'm trying to think of what happened at the end. He's HIV positive. His health starts to decline. And then Lindani isn't keeping like the house together. She's going to Pilates. And then Jonas, he's not taking his medication. He's doing the traditional medication and herbs. And Magesh is like, you need Western medicine. He seems to be like against Western medicine. So he's trying to treat HIV with herbs. And then so his health starts to deteriorate, gets worse, and then he ends up in the hospital. Magesh asks Joyce to come to the hospital. So she comes to the hospital, she sees him, and Joyce, she's not evil. And technically he is still her husband. So she's like, okay, I am willing to take care of you, help nurse you back to health. She creates like a meal plan with Tombi. Like she's like really committed to like I guess fulfilling her duties as a wife. And again, she's not evil, and so there's still care, but like she's done with him. But at this point, she's willing to take care of him. But then when she comes to the hospital in the next scene to come pick him up, and then Essie's there too, he's not there. And at first they're like, oh, is he dead? He's not. Lindani signed him out. So he's essentially like choosing to stay with Lindani instead of like going back home where Joyce was willing to take care of him and not necessarily put everything behind them, but put it on pause long enough, put her feelings aside long enough to care for him. But no, he wanted to go be with Lindani. So at this point, Joyce is like, I'm done. Don't call me about him again. It's over. Then it fast forwards 2 or 3 years, and we see that Joyce, she's like graduating and she has written a book, and now she's launching it like to announce to everyone that she's written a book. She's revealing the cover. They're having a launch party, and Pume comes back. Apparently now she's a psychologist, and things seem to be going pretty well. So 2 years have passed. No one has talked to Jonas, even Essie. Essie is probably the only one who really like misses him, whereas everybody else, they're kind of like, oh, like sometimes I wonder what he's up to, where he is, who he's with. And Joyce is like, he's probably just off doing the same thing he's always done. And we cut to Jonas is in like his health has gotten much worse. And Lindani's still out here living her life. And so Joyce is having her launch party for her book. Everyone's there. It's a good time. And then she's giving her speech. And then at the end of the speech, Lindani comes in with Jonas in a wheelchair. And she's like, well, you know what? I'm done. Like, you're his wife. You're his first wife. So go ahead. It's your turn. Take care of our man. I'm done. I'm not doing this. And so that's how Jonas ends up back at the Gomorrah house. And so to wrap the recap part up, Jonas eventually he dies from HIV because he did not take his medicine. Because had he taken his medicine, and I think Menzie even said this at one point, because Sarah was trying to be like, "Hey, this is our father. Like he's dying. Like we should like at least try to make an effort." And Menzie was like, "If he takes his medication, he wouldn't be dying. He would be living with HIV." But he did not take his medication, so he ends up dying. And Essie, Joyce would not let Essie come see Jonas when he was at her house. She wouldn't let him come in. And so Essie steals the corpse from the funeral home. And then when Joyce finds out, like she's pissed, and then she goes to the funeral. They're mid burial, and she comes and then they take the body out, and now Joyce has Jonas's body, and then they have the funeral. She tells Essie not to come. She's like, if you come, you'll be arrested. But then Essie shows up. Matipa also shows up. We see Matipa for the first time in a couple of years on the show. Tipa shows up, Essie, she still shows up. And yeah. Um, and then like this is all too much for Menzie, so he leaves because like Lindani, they had to escort her out because she was crying and hollering. They take her out, and then Menzie hooks up with Lindani. But for Joyce, again, this story, like at the end there, I started talking about everybody else. But this story is really about Joyce's identity shift. And what I don't want to say what I like about it, but what I think what it shows is that one, identity shifts happen usually it takes time because this is 5 years, like the series is 5 years of what happened from the beginning to where now we're at Jonas's funeral and Joyce is cursing him out at the funeral. It took years and it took unplanned things in Joyce's life. It seems like Matipa may have been like the only side chick throughout the marriage. I could be wrong on that, I'm not sure. But other than lying about Essie being his second wife, it seems like he may not have had other girlfriends throughout their marriage up until Matipa. I'm not sure. But essentially, if you were to ask Joy, she probably thought that everything was fine in their marriage. And then, once Matipa came into the picture, that's when things started going left and then really started going left, even though they really had been going left the whole time. But Joyce had put so much of her identity initially into being wife, mother, influencer, creating this lifestyle, all of those things. It was hard for her to let that go. She had to get to the point where she was like, enough, I'm not doing this anymore. I want more for myself. I just need some time to figure that out. And I think that happens for so many of us, where for the most part, most people in general are happy enough or we might deal with certain things in our lives and it's like, oh, well, that's palatable, right? Like how many of you can relate to that? I know that I've worked a job in the past where it wasn't great, but it wasn't as bad as past jobs. So I was like, well, it's palatable, it's good enough. Even though I knew it was the wrong environment, even though I knew like there was no progression for me. I didn't even want to like become a leader in that company but I still kept telling myself, well, it's fine. It's fine enough until I got to the point where it wasn't. And then, that's what was like the starting point, the catalyst for me to decide to build something else. And so for Joyce, again, throughout the series, I kept asking, why does she keep staying? Like, what is it about Jonas? It wasn't about Jonas. It was about Joyce and how she saw herself and her identity. And the second half of the series was really her rebuilding or getting to know herself. I wish that we had seen more of that, of her, rebuilding, like from her those 2 years between when she kicks out Jonas to where she has written a memoir and it's book launch day. I do wish we had seen more of that process, but at the same time, I can also understand that the process doesn't always make for good TV. So I get that. The process, it's not always easy to show in pictures or video what that process looks like. But all that to say, I really think Joyce's story is just an example of what it looks like to go through an identity shift, where her identity was, attached to someone else, like wife, mother, someone else. And then by the end, she wrote a memoir and, she's coming into becoming Joyce. And yeah, I think, other than the drama and the twists and everything else in the series, I do like that's one of my takeaways from Joyce's story was, why did she stay? Well, she stayed because she was scared of what was on the other side, and a big part of her identity was what she had built, and she didn't know who she was without that identity. And so by the end, she the day of the actual funeral, while she was getting ready, she was like, one more day. And it's like she was telling herself, you just got to do this one more day. For one more day, you just have to, I don't want to say put on a performance, but deal with this Jonas stuff for one more day. After today, after the burial, you are free to be Joyce. So thanks for watching, and make sure you subscribe, and yeah, see you next time.